Hare Krishna Premarasa Prabhu. Thank you so much for taking your time. You're a well-known face, at least in the Facebook community, and also gave a couple of good series about Srila Prabhupada last year. So very glad to you're taking your time to enlighten us and chosen a wonderful topic today. So without further notice, please take it from here and engage us to serve Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjalaşalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, thank you so much, His Grace Dvaipayana Prabhu and all the other devotees, Aritra Prabhu, Rasvigra Prabhu, and devotees connected to the ISKCON Orlando Temple to give me opportunity to share something for my own purification, for my own understanding and realization. And it's the great mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we are getting something to share and to serve. Okay, so today's topic is popularity and scholarship. Are popularity and scholarship the criteria for hearing? It's a very interesting topic because these days there is a lot of tendency and a trend in ISKCON, or maybe throughout the Vaishnava world, that we have thousands and thousands of speakers throughout the world, and many of them are very popular because of their excellent presentation, because of their speech and all. And then some of them are popular because of their scholarship. So to what factor these two things are contributing for a devotee to decide whether one should hear from these devotees, these type of devotees? So I was thinking of this topic, as a very important subject matter, because we have to also understand the importance of popularity and scholarship from the spiritual perspective. So in the material world, obviously, we know that the more popular a person is, the more we tend to hear from them. And the more a person has knowledge, the more we tend to hear from them. But these two aspects, they have a slightly different position when it is compared with the spiritual realm. And this is what we are actually going to understand from the eyes of Guru Sadhu Shastra. So let's start with the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam's purport. So Srila Prabhupada is actually mentioning something very important in this purport, and the verse is, it's the second canto, second chapter, and verse number 36. So I will go through the verse because I think this is very important to share with devotees. Verse and the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Okay. So second canto, second chapter, 36th verse. And I will just go through the translation purport. Translation: O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sukadeva Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat, or therefore, because in the previous verse, he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by devotees in different methods like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing only, all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasdev, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is super soul of everything, we should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of human being. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim to hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machine. Okay, I'll stop here. because this is all relevant for our today's topic. So basically, we can clearly understand amongst the 9 processes of bhakti, nine limbs of bhakti, hearing is the foremost. Because without hearing, there is no question of properly chanting also. You cannot chant the holy name without sufficiently hearing it from a self-realized devotee and also understanding the importance of its relationship with the holy name. So you require Sambandh Gyan, even when you chant the holy name or when you get Diksha mantras from your Diksha Guru, you require Sambandh Gyan. Without that Sambandh Gyan, you cannot make a relationship with the Lord, because you will not be able to understand why we are chanting the holy name and what is the process. How do we connect with the Lord? So Sambandh Gyan is very important. And that's why hearing, what is hearing? Hearing is basically, reading and hearing in one sense are not different, because reading can be termed as silent hearing. And that is Shravanam. So basically, Prabhupada also says somewhere that the first process of bhakti is hearing. That's why bhakti begins with hearing, Shravanam, right? So this is actually the most important element, most important factor in how we are going to design our Krishna conscious lifestyle in the future. The more you hear from particular devotees, the more you will tend to become like that. Like, it is said that, you become with whom you associate, right? You become like that with whom you associate. So similarly, your hearing will, the quality of hearing will actually determine the quality of your chanting as well as the quality of the lifestyle in Krishna consciousness. Basically, it can also mean that, like, today I was hearing a wonderful podcast by His Holiness Shivaram Maharaj, and he was mentioning that how all these limbs are so important actually in Krishna consciousness. It's not that only one limb is sufficient, because although it is mentioned that one of the limbs can actually give us complete perfection, but obviously you cannot make any advancement without hearing. So hearing is definitely the most foundational limb of bhakti. And then the most prominent limb of bhakti becomes your most favorite limb of bhakti, which you probably will invest more time. Okay. But for perfecting that limb of bhakti, you have to also perfect hearing. And so Shivaram Maharaj was comparing the entire process to cooking. And he was saying that if you don't have the required ingredients for cooking, then obviously you are not going to get the desired stuff. So something is missing there, right? So similarly, all these limbs, when you do it, because Prabhupada has recommended, and Prabhupada has recommended us the Bhagavad Vidhi and the Panchratrik Vidhi. Both should go simultaneously. It should be parallel. And these are very important for us sadhakas, because we have a tendency to become irregular or to become unsteady in our bhakti. Or even if we are steady, there are chances that we may lose the taste and attraction for the Lord over a period of time, because as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, that the path led by the devotees is full of rocks and challenges. Whoever is practicing Krishna consciousness or bhakti, their path, it is set by rocks, it is set by thorns, to be precise. So so obviously there will be a lot of obstacles, there will be challenges, there will be difficulties, problems, anxieties in Krishna consciousness, and that anxieties can also be because of our services that we are taking. And in order to overcome all these challenges, we require constant dose of Shravanam, constant association of devotees. And then we also require to be regulated in our schedule, because all these elements, they can, at any point of time, they can actually discourage us, and we may become deviated from the process for some period of time. Or mentally, even though physically we may be acting in a regulated way, but mentally it can affect us a lot. And that's why when we are worshipping the deities, we are regulated. At least physically we are regulated in terms of sadhana. In terms of seva also, physically we are regulated. And we are also seeing the deities, we are also seeing the Lord basically every day, each and every single day. And then obviously, if we are disconnected with hearing, if we are disconnected with chanting, if we are disconnected with the dham, if we are disconnected with the devotees, all of these things are going to affect our Krishna consciousness for sure. Okay, so these are the 5 most potent elements, as Rupa Goswami also suggests in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so that's why, now what we are going to discuss is from whom to hear. This is a very important principle. So we know that hearing is the foundational principle of amongst all limbs of bhakti. And there is now we observe one thing. We observe one thing amongst the devotee community, that most of the devotees, the tendency is to seek information rather than to seek transformation. And that's where most of the devotees are actually taking a wrong path. Because, the more we are trying to seek knowledge, obviously knowledge is required, no doubt about it, and we'll discuss that elaborately in the second section. So we are going to have two sections. I'll be addressing first section basically about the popularity of speakers, and the second section about the scholarship of the speakers. And in the scholarship section, we'll actually go through all these points, that why knowledge is very important. Okay, we cannot do without knowledge. At the same time, we have to understand in what way we have to accept knowledge. It's not necessary that whoever is having a lot of knowledge are the best devotees or very advanced devotees. So this is what we are going to understand now. So basically the tendency is to seek information rather than to seek transformation. Now the problem with this is that if you just keep acquiring knowledge, if you just keep acquiring knowledge without practicing and without serving, basically service is the most important element in Krishna consciousness. And we say that we want to perform devotional service to the Lord. So Prabhupada does not say that bhakti means devotion, right? He translates bhakti as devotional service. So now what is that service? That is actually the most important element. It's actually the prayojan. Okay. Now prayojan can also mean that we attain the feet of Krishna, we attain Golok Vrindavan. That can also mean prayojan. But His Grace Janivas Prabhu, Pankaj Angri Prabhu, they have repeatedly mentioned over a period of time that prayojan is actually service. Okay, so whether you are in the material world or in the spiritual world, you want to serve the Lord. And that is also a common phenomena which is observed amongst the Vrajvasis. They are always in anxiety. Okay, they don't want peace. They want Krishna's happiness. And for Krishna's happiness, they are willing to serve and they are willing to take anxiety for his service. So you'll see this common theme in all the devotees of Krishna. And so service is actually the ultimate goal. Okay. Prabhupada once said that Acharya never goes back to Godhead. Okay. And then one disciple was asking question to Prabhupada that what does it mean that the Acharya never goes back to Godhead? So then Prabhupada said that, well, the Acharya actually keeps coming to the material world. From one universe, he'll go to another universe and he will always serve the Lord. He will spread Krishna consciousness. He will preach. And then the disciple asked Prabhupada, so, okay, so is it like, the Acharya expands himself and he's in the spiritual world at the same time he's also in the material world? And Prabhupada said, yes, something like that. So basically what we understand is when a pure devotee is praying, or even when a disciple of a guru is praying, what is your goal? So the goal of every disciple is to render service to their, or to become assistant of their spiritual master lifetime after lifetime. So, this was also the desire of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He also had this desire to praise, to basically assist Prabhupada wherever he went. Okay. And so a pure devotee is the one who is always focused on service. So what we have to understand is that although we definitely seek information, but the most important element is that along with that information, we have a desire to implement and we have a desire to serve the Lord and the devotees. Okay. Now Shastra says that we should hear from advanced devotees. Okay. Throughout the Bhagavatam, you'll see that how Bhagavatam is recommending that to hear from pure Vaishnavas or the Vaishnavas who are free from envy, right? So now the question is that are the popular speakers that we have, are they advanced? And obviously the answer is we don't know that. So it is possible that some of them may be advanced and some of them may not be advanced. So it is not necessary. But that what is happening is because they are very popular, so it is assumed that and because they have thousands of followers or may have they have admiration from thousands of devotees. So it is assumed that, okay, this devotee may be, he must be very advanced. But it is not like that. So we see, now see, this is also something very interesting. We see that the disciples of, there are many advanced Vaishnavas in ISKCON, and we see that their disciples are more popular than themselves. Okay, so we have so many gurus in ISKCON, they are very advanced devotees. The gurus themselves are not very popular, but the disciples are actually more popular. Okay, but who is more advanced? Obviously, by observing their behavior, their humility, their sacrifice, their surrender, we can actually clearly understand that the guru, they are more advanced. Okay, and we can clearly make out this, by comparing the level of sacrifice, the level of surrender, what not they have done for Srila Prabhupada, the behavior, their interaction, the humility that they have. They are perfect gentlemen in all respects. But sometimes we do not want to hear from them, just because we don't, we just prefer to hear from someone who is expert at presenting, who is expert at, presenting in a very efficacious way. Like it's not necessary that whatever they are speaking is coming from realization. It can be, obviously they are repeating the words of the previous acharyas, so there is some potency. But when you talk about advanced Vaishnavas, the more the realized the devotees, the more the purity will be there, the more effective will be their preaching also. And that basically means the transformative effect will be there. Okay, so it is not necessary that popular devotees may be able to impact or transform others to a great degree. Because it is very clearly mentioned in the Shastra that unless until you have Krishna's mercy, Kali Karera Naam Dharma Shri Krishna Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartan. So unless we have that empowerment from Krishna, we cannot actually change the hearts of others. So this is a very important principle. So one time, there is one particular example I would like to give. So as we know that Gaurang Prabhu is extremely popular, and he's, obviously I have high regards for him, because what not he has done for Srila Prabhupada, what services he has not rendered in ISKCON. He has rendered all types of services, and that's why I have the most regards and respect for him. So one time, but there was a phase when Gaurang Prabhu was especially popular for his Bhagavad Katha, Bhagavad Saptas. And so during one period of time when devotees, they were just about to discover a land for Govardhan Eco Village, and Maharaj personally took all the devotees with them, and then he was showing around the land and everything. And Gaurang Prabhu, he was thinking in his mind that where have we come? There is nothing here. And whatever Maharaj, vision he has, I don't think it's going to be fruitful here, because I don't see any scope of that. So then he was thinking like that, and then he expressed his desire to Maharaj. And then Maharaj became very grave. He said, do you just want to speak Krishna, or you want to realize Krishna? So that was a very striking comment by Maharaj, that speaking about Krishna and realizing Krishna, these are two different things. It's not the same. So one may keep speaking about Krishna, but if that devotee does not surrender to Guru, or he does not surrender to the authorities, does not have a cooperative spirit, has not rendered services, menial services, then that kind of popularity is superficial to some extent. So basically, the depth of Krishna consciousness of a devotee can judge by how much surrender a devotee is to his spiritual master, and how much humility he possesses. So sometimes what happens, skills are mistaken for advancement, and it can take time to know one, and even after knowing, it is possible that one may have setbacks. So we have examples in our movement in the past. There were sannyasis who were very good standing sannyasis, but all of a sudden we got to know that, well, they left ISKCON, or they deviated, or they changed their ashram. And so for the time being, as long as they were sannyasis, they were gurus, we used to think that they are very advanced. But the moment it came out that, well, they had some issues or problems, then we started doubting them. And our faith also got disturbed, right? So, I had personal experience of getting in touch with a sannyasi and considering that sannyasi as my Siksha Guru for quite a period of time. And then later on, the GBC had, they came out with a resolution that he has left ISKCON. Or basically they said that, he's got some issues. So during that period, I was thinking that because he was fantastic orator, and he had deep knowledge about Radha and Krishna Tattva, about Shastra and all that. So obviously it is natural for any disciple, for any devotee to assume that that particular sannyasi or guru is very advanced, but we don't know what is going to happen in the future. And then Prabhupada also said that many stalwarts in the future, they may deviate. They will probably leave ISKCON. And Prabhupada also said that we don't consider the future possibilities. What we are seeing is the current status of the devotee. And so Prabhupada encouraged all the devotees to advance in their Krishna consciousness, seeing their current status. Although Prabhupada had predicted that many stalwarts may leave ISKCON. So we know that these are all the possibilities, and that's why we have to be careful that we should not come to a conclusion that just because someone is a popular devotee, he's very advanced. Okay, so now it is possible that many devotees, they don't even know the speaker, and it is possible that the speaker are also struggling sadhakas, but just due to the ability to express and quote slokas very fluently, we tend to become influenced by that. So this thing we have to keep in mind. And then it is also possible that some devotees are empowered by the Lord directly, or maybe it's their karma which is allowing them to become very popular in this life. So the Lord is actually making the karma as an instrument for some devotees to become popular in this life, and then that's how they are able to attain that kind of prestige in this life. So there are so many things, and we don't know the background of these devotees, these popular devotees. So we have to be considerate of all these things. Now, the most important element of hearing, and again I am saying that I don't say that all the popular speakers, all the popular devotees are not advanced. No, it is possible there may be advanced devotees also. But what I'm saying is that we have to be considerate of all these points. We have to think about these things, and accordingly we have to make a choice. Plus, whenever we know that there is an advanced Vaishnava who is giving class, just because he's not able to present it properly, it does not mean that we stop hearing from him. Okay. And we give more importance to popular speakers than to all these advanced Vaishnavas. That should not happen. Now this element is very important for hearing. See, what is the meaning of hearing? Does it mean that when you are hearing from someone, you just keep hearing from them every time, whenever you are, like maybe regularly every day? What is the meaning of hearing? Hearing basically means that we have to make a connection with the devotee, connection with the speaker, connection, and that connection basically means that ultimately we have to accept someone as our guru, and we have to follow their guidance. We have to surrender. We have to render service to them. This is actually the process which is described in the Shastra, Bhagavad Gita 4.34, Tad vidhi pranipatena paripasthena sevaya. So direct statement in the Bhagavad Gita where it says that one has to render service, they have to surrender, they have to render service, they have to inquire submissively, and the realized soul can impart knowledge because they have seen the truth, right? So this is so important. Now, I would also like to share a couple of other statements from the Shastra as well as from Srila Prabhupada, where it is very clear that just by hearing from someone, just by acquiring knowledge is not the end result. Okay, but we have to go ahead. And what is that? So let's go to Chaitanya Bhagavat. Now, there is a direct verse in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Khand, 22nd chapter and the 7th verse. Okay, so what does it say? Vaishnavera kripaya se pai Vishwambara bhakti vina japa tapa akinchi takara. Vishwambar can be attained only by the mercy of Vaishnavas. Without devotional service, one's chanting and austerities are meaningless. Chanting the Lord's names and performing austerities without being inclined to the Lord's service are simply useless labor. Without the mercy of Supreme Lord's servants, an inclination for the Lord's service cannot be awakened. So this is a direct statement from the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khand by Vrindavan Das Thakur. Then I would also like to share a letter to Sankarshan Das Adhikari, 23rd July 1972. 1 second. Yeah. So this is letter to Sankarshan Das Adhikari. My dear Sankarshan, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your dated letter nil, and I have noted the contents. It is very good that you want to become very learned in Krishna consciousness. But what good is so much knowledge without practice? Obedience must be there. So by being submissive in this way and following the direction of the temple leaders is practicing the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Disciple means discipline. Without discipline, there cannot be any spiritual progress. Therefore, our system is to follow the authority of our superiors. Not that we can independently question. Not this is right and this is wrong. That is not the way. So my best advice to you is that without questioning, you follow the instructions given to you by Vishnujan and other leaders and do exactly as they say. Then everything will be all right. If you want to study, there is much time in the day for studying, but you must go also on Sankirtan party. That is the result or practice of your studying. Simply studying is dry and useless without chanting. Hoping this meets you in good health. Your ever very Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami. Very important letter. Then there is also another purport by Srila Prabhupada, which is in the 7th canto, 15th chapter. Seventh canto, 15th chapter, and the verse is 25th. Okay, so what I will do is I will read the translation and the purport. Translation: one must conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by developing the mode of goodness, and then one must become detached from mode of goodness by promoting oneself to the platform of Shuddha Sattva. All this can be automatically done if one engages in the service of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. In this way, one can conquer the influence of the modes of nature. Just by treating the root cause of ailment, one may conquer all the bodily pains and sufferings. Similarly, if one is devoted and faithful to the spiritual master, he can conquer the influence of Sattva-gun, Rajagun and Tamagun very easily. Yogis and Jnanis practice in many ways to conquer the senses, but the Bhakt immediately attains the mercy of Supreme Godhead through the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasya prasada bhagavad prasado. If the spiritual master is favorably inclined, one naturally receives the mercy of Supreme Lord, and by the mercy of Supreme Lord, one immediately becomes transcendental, conquering all influences of Sattva, Raja and Tamagun. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. If one is pure devotee acting under the direction of Guru, one easily gets the mercy of Supreme Lord and becomes immediately situated on a transcendental platform. Yeah. So, and then obviously we have the very popular verse from the Shvetavastra Upanishad, which says that Yasadeva Parabhakti Yatha Deva Tatha Guru Tasyate Kathiti Artha Prakashante Mahatmana. Unless and until devotee has implicit faith in the Guru and Krishna, the purport of the Vedas are not revealed to such a person. So only when you have implicit faith in Guru and Krishna simultaneously, then only the purports of Vedas are revealed to such a person. So we'll discuss this a bit elaborately in our second section. So there are many advanced Vaishnavas in our community, but do we offer them the same honor and respect that we give to all these popular speakers whom we don't even know what is their background, what services they are doing, how much humility, what kind of cooperative spirit they have, how much they have been connected to any particular temple? We don't know all these things. In fact, we sometimes have to reflect that within our communities, we have many advanced Vaishnavas who are serving in the background, and they are not even respected, they are not even honored. just because probably they are not popular speakers or they are not excellent orators, right? So we have to reflect and we have to see, we have to identify such kind of devotees and we have to give them the chance to speak. Now, so it's not necessary that only excellent orators can give Bhagavatam class or they can explain the philosophy. Obviously, we do understand that unless and until someone is able to connect with the audience, obviously it becomes difficult. But then there are many devotees who can also connect with the audience and they can also speak nicely. They can also share and they can, from their realized position, they can actually transform people. So we need to identify that and we have to give them chance. It's not that we have to run behind all the popular devotees and give them first preference. First, identify, because in your community, these devotees are the ones whom you have maximum contact, and they are the ones who are inspiring you also. So Vaishnava community also includes the bondage of relationship, and in that relationship, obviously, we have to give that kind of honor and respect also, so that the community can flourish together. Like, for example, in our Radha Govinda temple also, we have this system. And this is something that I've observed personally. It's not that only popular devotees are given chance to speak. There are, like, in the Bhagavatam class also, and then we have the Sunday feast also, and we have festival classes also. We see that how any devotee who is serving in the background, who is very humble, who is doing a lot of menial services, or very advanced devotee, maybe they are not in the forefront because they are not speaking so much, but they are given chance, they are given turns. Each and every devotee is given an opportunity to speak in the Srimad Bhagavatam, irrespective of their presentation. So this is very important. So the main element of hearing is basically how much the devotee is advanced. That is actually the most important element. So this aspect can be implemented in our temples. So, like that, some speakers, they have never been part of a temple. They have never served under any authority. They have no experience of cooperation in multi-guru environment, and still they may be popular speakers just because of their skills. Okay, so it is possible that they may have only read and led an independent devotional life, and later they may have become speakers. So these things are there. That's why we have to be very careful in choosing the right person to hear from. And so the most important element is to make a connection on a long-term basis with the speaker, and not just hear, but also serve and gradually surrender. That's the process. So basically the idea is that ultimately everything depends on the disciple, on the devotee. You may hear from very advanced Vaishnavas, pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada also, but there is a possibility that you may not make any advancement because you are not taking that effort. Okay. And you, so there are, in Krishna consciousness, nothing is magical. We have the example of Damodar Leela, where we see that Yashoda Maiya's effort and Krishna's mercy, they are going hand in hand, right? So these are the two elements which are necessary for each and every devotee to advance in spiritual life. One cannot just rely on the special mercy of Srila Prabhupada or devotee or Krishna. That is very rare. Okay. That's why the efforts of the devotee as well as the mercy of the Lord. So now it is mentioned that from the stage of Shraddha to Nishtha, the dominant factor is the devotee's efforts. Krishna mercy is always in all the stages. But why till the stage of Nishtha? Because till only the stage of Nishtha, we have the opportunity to serve the Lord physically. So this is something that we can do. Beyond this, we cannot do anything. Now, Nishtha means you become steady in your service physically, mentally, emotionally, all these aspects. And that is in our hand. That is our efforts. But beyond that, Ruchi. Now, whether you will get just because you are steady, does it mean that you will get Ruchi? No, that will depend on Krishna. Does it mean that you will attain Asakti? No, that will also again depend on Krishna. If Krishna wants you to become attached to him very strongly, then he will bestow Asakti. If Krishna sees element of pride in us, even we are steady in our Krishna consciousness, he may not award us Asakti. And then obviously there is a question of how and praying. So we'll see that right from Ruchi to Prem, the dominant factor is Krishna's mercy. Our efforts also play a role, but the dominating factor is Krishna's mercy. Whereas from Shraddha to Nishtha, it is our efforts. So we have to always remember one thing, that unless and until we make a connection with the devotee and we start following the devotee, because see, the problem is that we cannot follow a lot of devotees. Now, the concept of multiple Siksha Guru, it's not like that. Why? Because you cannot follow multiple people. And because of our individuality, these multiple Siksha Gurus that we have, they also have difference of opinion. It's not that they are all going to agree on the same thing. Okay, they will also disagree on certain things. And everyone has a particular style of connecting us with Krishna. So that is individual, because we are individuals. And so to say that I have multiple Siksha Guru, well, you can have multiple Siksha Guru in different areas. Like, I learned preaching, I learned book distribution from Vaisheshika Prabhu. I learned preaching from Kalakant Prabhu. I learned the art of forgiveness from Mahatma Prabhu. I learned Shastra from Bhanu Maharaj. Like, just some examples. So in different areas, you may have different devotees as your Siksha Gurus, but generally we follow some only. We don't follow everyone, because this is not in our capacity. We cannot follow everyone. We cannot surrender to everyone, and we are limited in our capacity to serve them, right? So we have to filter out. Ultimately, the beginning process that we start hearing from multiple devotees throughout different parts of the world, and then we make a connection. The first connection is that, okay, whatever this devotee is speaking to us, it is making sense. It is emotionally, mentally, and with heart and soul, heart and mind, everything is resonating with whatever he's speaking. So that is the first connection. So second connection is, now you have to see whether the devotee is available for you to give you guidance, to actually encourage you in the path of bhakti. So it is possible that he's advanced Vaishnava, you are attracted to him, but maybe he's so busy that he does not have time for that. So then definitely you may take inspiration from the devotee from an absolute platform, which means that general lectures about Krishna consciousness you may hear from that devotee, but on a subjective platform, you start taking guidance from devotees who are able to give you time, who are able to understand your circumstances, situations, and accordingly give you that. So there are multiple aspects of choosing a devotee. Okay, but this is very important. This is actually the most important thing. Okay, the filtering of the devotees is very important. So this winds up the first part, the first section of addressing on the popularity of the speakers. Now we'll move to the second section, which is scholarship. So we'll take the questions at the end of the class. Otherwise, I think we may run beyond time or something. Okay, so now scholarship. So we know that Srila Prabhupada is the one who actually introduced the concept of Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Sarvabhauma. And then, so personally, I've got a chance to read Prabhupada's all the letters. I have read Prabhupada's all letters from 65 to 77 twice. And I can tell you that maximum of the letters Prabhupada is actually asking devotees to read his books. Chant attentively, follow the regulative principles very strictly, thoroughly read my books, scrutinizingly read my books. So many times Prabhupada is asking devotees to read his books. So now if knowledge is not important, then why Prabhupada is so much emphasizing on reading the books? In fact, it is very interesting to note that maximum amount of time Prabhupada has spent in his books. So which is what? Which is knowledge. Right? So we cannot minimize the importance of knowledge. Knowledge is extremely important. In fact, something very interesting. If you want to chant Shudhanam, you must have knowledge. You cannot chant Shudhanam if you don't have knowledge. That's very important. Okay, because the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a Mahamantra. There are no rules and regulations for that. Anyone can chant anytime, any point of time, anywhere, does not have any influence on the holy name. But there is a condition. The condition is that the name should be chanted offenselessly, purely, if you want to attain Krishna Prem. Now, in order to attain pure, in order to chant purely, what is, what do you mean, when we say that we have to chant purely? So we have to understand what is pure chanting. We have to understand what is offenseless chanting. And for that, obviously, we require knowledge. And so that's the purpose of Guru. If you say that now, if you don't require knowledge, what you are saying is you don't require Guru, because Hare Krishna Mahamantra is there. You just keep chanting the holy name. And so what now I will be sharing is multiple aspects of Prabhupada's teachings, and then we'll try to reconcile all these things. Okay. So now we'll see that how many Vaishnava Acharyas they have also written. You'll see that in our own Sampradaya, Rup Goswami, Jeev Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, all of them, they have written something, they have commented on Shastra, and every Sampradaya, you'll see that they are rooted to some philosophical truth. So in order to have that philosophical truth, obviously you must have knowledge. Otherwise, you cannot sustain yourself. The Sampradaya cannot sustain itself without a proper philosophical background. Okay, so this is very important. Now, according to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we'll see that how Rupa Goswami is actually describing the different types of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama. And then one of the symptoms of Uttama Adhikari is that the Uttama in Vaidhi Bhakti. Now you remember one thing, that this categorization of devotees is based on Vaidhi Bhakti, not to confuse with the categorization of devotees which is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, this is a different category of description of the advancement of devotees, which is basically in terms of Vaidhi Bhakti. So Vaidhi Bhakti is basically about rules and regulations and having faith in Shastra. The reason you want to connect with the Lord is basically the Shastra, because the Shastra is actually recommending us to connect with the Lord. That is the reason. Okay, so now the faith in Shastra should be there. The more the faith you have in Shastra, the more you will be advanced, because it has a direct influence on your connection with the Lord. Okay, so Uttama in Vaidhi Bhakti has the greatest amount of knowledge compared to Madhyama and Kanishta. At the same time, Uttama in Vaidhi Bhakti, he has also the capability to defeat anyone in argument. Okay, so obviously you cannot defeat someone unless you have knowledge and unless you have strong logic. You can use strong logic to defeat someone. So these things are very important. Now, one very interesting point about Uttama Adhikari or any advanced Vaishnava is that even if they have a lot of knowledge, even if they have very good convincing skill, but it is completely balanced by their humility. Because as you advance in spiritual life, the humility also increases. That will also intensify with time. Okay, so that will perfectly balance. Now, what is happening, and this is also something that we have seen in the past, many scholarly devotees, what they are doing, they are trying to gain knowledge and they are raising their standards, but humility they are forgetting. And then what is happening? They are deviating, they are leaving ISKCON. Sometimes they are also becoming critical of Prabhupada's translations, because humility is the most important element. It is without humility you cannot sustain that position. So there is a danger. Okay, and that's why Prabhupada was also concerned about it, and he repeatedly wrote to his disciples who were trying to become Sanskrit scholars. So in the initial days, Prabhupada did encourage some of his disciples to study Sanskrit, because obviously he wanted help from them. And but later on, when you see that there are instructions by Prabhupada where he actually discourages devotees to become Sanskrit scholars. Okay, so obviously according to time, place, circumstance, Prabhupada said things. But we have to keep in mind that humility is actually the most important element. Now, certain important aspects from Gaur Leela. So first and foremost, we do understand that knowing and realizing conclusion of Shastra is different. So knowing Shastra and then realizing Shastra, these are completely two different things. Now let's consider, let's take some example from Gaur Leela. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, 16th chapter, 75th verse onwards, you'll see that how there is a description of the son of Shivananda Sen, the youngest son of Shivananda Sen, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets his youngest son, and then he's asking him to chant Krishna's name. But he's not able to chant because he feels very shy and he does not want to share it openly with others. So Mahaprabhu is repeatedly asking him to chant, but he's not willing to. So then Swarup Damodar Goswami is hinting to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that probably he's not chanting because you have personally initiated him with the Krishna mantra and he's not comfortable to share with others. So then Mahaprabhu understands that. And then when Mahaprabhu personally meets his son, then he asks him to chant the name. So what he does, he immediately composes a verse glorifying Krishna, the qualities of Krishna. And then Mahaprabhu is stunned. But you know, so here the conclusion is that, and it is also mentioned that this youngest son of Shivananda Sen was not even educated. He was kind of illiterate. But because of Mahaprabhu's special mercy, immediately he composed a verse and he glorified Krishna. Okay, so this is very important to understand. So if someone says that, okay, without knowledge one cannot attain Krishna, well, there are many examples in the Shastra where you will see that, you know, Mahaprabhu has encouraged devotees, and we'll see later also. There are more examples to come. Yeah, so now devotees in Gaur Lila, they were not on the same level of scholarship, but they were highly advanced devotees. And this particular this particular aspect is highlighted in the pastime of Swarup Damodar Goswami correcting the Brahmana from Bengal. So there was a Brahmana who actually arrived in Puri, and then he wanted to take association of all these devotees, of Mahaprabhu devotees. And then he started requesting Swarup Damodar Goswami that he has composed something very beautiful, a beautiful poem for the glorification of Lord Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wanted all the devotees to hear. But Swarup Damodar Goswami was kind of very critical about such things, because he knew that it's not necessary whoever will come, they will actually present the proper Siddhant, the proper Tattva of Krishna. Okay, so he was very concerned. He was not so encouraging about it. But all the devotees, they were saying that, okay, let him glorify Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then what happened? Because of the recommendation of all the devotees, Swarup Damodar Goswami actually allowed him to speak. And immediately he composed a verse and then he shared it with all the others. Now, in this verse, what he did, he actually compared Jagannath to a material body. Okay, and he said that Jagannath is actually the material body, and the soul of the material body is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so basically he offended Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu both, and Swarup Damodar Goswami got very angry. He was very upset. So immediately he actually criticized him, chastised him, and he said that what you have done is completely out of Siddhant, because you have compared Jagannath to an ordinary material body, whereas this is an offense to the deity form of the Lord. So Jagannath form, even though it appears material, but it is completely transcendental. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually the shelter of all these jivas. And you are comparing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the jivas. So you are committing offense to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this way, now see, it's very interesting that when he shared this verse with all the devotees started glorifying him, because they didn't understand what he was intending, what he was conveying. But Swarup Damodar Goswami, being a very scholarly devotee, he could easily understand what are the fallacies in the tattva of this verse. And so the moment Swarup Damodar Goswami corrected this Brahmana from Bengal, all the devotees, they appreciated Swarup Damodar Goswami, and they also felt repentant about their appraisal for this devotee. And they started saying, yeah, what Swarup Damodar Goswami is absolutely right. And you have actually offended Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So from this pastime, we can actually understand that even if someone does not have that kind of scholarship, the scholarship qualities, but if they are realized devotees, if they are very advanced Vaishnavas, they will actually be realized with the conclusion of the Shastras. And that is by the mercy of the Lord. So, so even though they might not be able to detect some fallacies in the verse, but still they were able to understand that, okay, yeah, there is some mistake, which Swarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out. And they were convinced that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme personality of Godhead, and Jagannath is also not different. The form of Jagannath is not different from the form of the Lord. That actually they understood clearly. Okay, so we'll see that how these devotees, they are very simple devotees. Maybe they are not very scholarly or on the same level of scholarship that Swarup Damodar Goswami or any other devotee was, but they were able to assimilate and realize the conclusion of the Shastra. Okay. So now there is another example from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and yeah, so this example of Swarup Damodar Goswami correcting the Brahmana is from CC Antya Leela, 5th chapter, 114 verse onwards. And there is another example from CC Madhya Leela, 9th chapter, 93rd verse onwards, which is about the, I think you must have heard this example. Brahmana who is reading the Bhagavad Gita and is not able to pronounce it properly. He is mispronouncing the Bhagavad Gita. And so this particular Brahmana is actually is a Brahmana, and he's assembled in the he is actually in the assembly of other Brahmanas, and he has a regular habit of reading the Bhagavad Gita every single day. He reads all the 18 chapters every day, and when he's reading, he's crying. Whereas the other Brahmanas, they're expert in chanting, they're expert in presenting, they're expert in scholarship. Okay, but they are not crying. But this particular Brahmana, even he's not able to pronounce the verses, he's illiterate, he's not educated, he does not understand the meaning of the words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sees that, he comes to the Brahmana, he embraces him, and he says that actually you are truly realized devotee, and you are fit to share the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita with others. So I wanted to, go to the end, actual verse, which is CC Madhya Leela. Yeah. Yeah, so obviously now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also having a discussion with him, and he's asking him that why you are crying, and then he says that, just by looking at the picture of Krishna taking a very humble position and being a chariot driver of Arjuna, that makes me cry, because Krishna is actually the supreme personality of Godhead, but still he's taking such a low position, and that makes me cry. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told this Brahmana, this is given in the verse 102. Indeed, you are an authority in the reading of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you know constitutes the real purport of the Bhagavad Gita. So see, he did not praise the other scholarly Brahmanas in that assembly, but he actually praised this Brahmana, right? So this is very important. And I would like to read the purport of 98th verse, because this is also very relevant, and translation of the purport. So the Brahmana replied, I am illiterate and therefore do not know the meaning of the words. Sometimes I read the Bhagavad Gita correctly, sometimes incorrectly, but in any case, I am doing this in compliance with the orders of my spiritual master. So Purport Srila Prabhupada writes that this is a good example of a person who had become so successful that he was able to capture the attention of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even while reading the Bhagavad Gita incorrectly. His spiritual activities did not depend on material things such as correct pronunciation. Rather, his success depends strictly following the instructions of his spiritual master. Now, this is also very important, that he was actually following the instruction of his spiritual master. In spite of not being able to recite Bhagavad Gita properly, he was only following the instruction of spiritual master. So then Prabhupada says that, he quotes this verse from the Shvetavastra Upanishad, Yasyadeva Parabhakti, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So actually the meaning of the words Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam are revealed to one strictly following the orders of the spiritual master. They are also revealed to one who has equal faith in Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master. This is the secret of success in spiritual life. So this is what Prabhupada says. Now another striking example is Dhruv Maharaj. You see that how Dhruv Maharaj, he was not even a Shuddh Bhakta, right? He was not even a pure devotee. In fact, you see in Sanatana Goswami's Vijay Bhagavatamrit, the the starting devotee is basically Prahlad Maharaj. He's not even Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj is nowhere in the picture. Why? Because the Acharyas, they explain that Dhruv Maharaj actually had a ulterior motive. Okay, so Dhruv Maharaj wanted to attain a heavenly kingdom which was greater than his father's or Brahma's, right? So that was the desire. But then after seeing the Lord, Dhruv Maharaj's heart transformed, he repented. And then what happened? Immediately after seeing the Lord, Dhruv Maharaj wanted to offer prayers, he wanted to offer verses and glorify the Lord. But he was unable to do it because he had no knowledge. And then we see that how the Supreme Lord, understanding the mood and heart of the Bhav, Lord is Bhavgrahi and Sargrahi. So after realizing the heart of Dhruv Maharaj, what he did, he touched his conch on the head of Dhruv Maharaj, and suddenly everything was realized to him. All the Vedic knowledge was realized to him. So see, this is the process. If we are pleasing the spiritual master, maybe at the time of death, the spiritual master will just touch with his feet. He may touch our head with his feet, or Krishna may personally, he may bless us, and then automatically everything that we need to know about spiritual life will be manifested. So that is the mercy. So see, that's why we just have to serve the spiritual master. We don't have to have any expectations that I want to attain stage of prema in this life. I want to do bhajan, in such a way that, I cross anartha nivriti in this much time. And obviously we want to do that. That's the goal. But that should not become the primary focus. The primary focus should be to serve the Lord. And then there is an example in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also. Rupa Goswami gives the example of Daruka. How Daruka is fanning Krishna and he is feeling some transcendental symptoms because he's feeling fanning the Lord, right? But he's suppressing those feelings because it is a disturbance in his service to the Lord. So what is most important is the desire to please the Lord. What the Lord wants, ultimately, that is actually, if the Lord wants us to chant the holy name constantly, that is our service. If the Lord does not want us to chant the holy name, but he wants us to render service, some physical, practical service, that is, then the ultimate goal. Okay, so now let's go through some of the very important verses from Krishna Varnamrit, which is given by Narari Sarkar, who is Eternal Associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after this, I will come back to Srila Prabhupada's statements and we'll try to reconcile. So Krishna Varnamrit is a manual. It's a guidebook, which actually will make us understand the concept, the principles of Guru Tattva very thoroughly. It's a very important thing because at certain point of time in the earlier stages of ISKCON, the GBC was not aware of certain things. And the entire GBC was, I think, confused related to the truths about Guru Tattva. So that time, I think it was Bhakti Charu Maharaj who had recommended to, go through this book, because this particular book, Krishna Varnamrit, it reveals the concept of Guru Tattva like no other book. And you will see how it is. So basically, I will just quote some of the verses from Krishna Varnamrit. So verse number 3 and 4, a very interesting verse. And I will only read the English translation. So during this Kali Yuga, when the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu's transcendental pastimes become unmanifest, their lordships become the object of transcendental research and discussion. At that time, all levels of devotees, including Uttama, Madhyama and Kanishta Adhikaris, shall always be in anxiety, and it will be at all times. They shall almost feel uncertainty in their hearts regarding the correct understanding of the eternal truths of devotional service. Very striking. Even the Uttama Adhikaris, they all will be in anxiety regarding the clarity of the truths of devotional service. Then let me share verse number 43 and 45, 43 to 45. So he says that among all Vaishnavas, the Diksha and Siksha Gurus are special. So these are all Guru etiquettes, Tattva, Guru Tattva principles and etiquettes, which he has described in the book. And then in the verse number 46 to 49, he says, if the Diksha Guru is not very learned, a disciple by the Guru's permission may take instruction from a more learned Vaishnava. Having received such instruction, the disciple must confirm it with his Diksha Guru. And then verse number 50 to 56, he says, even in the presence of or while taking instruction from a superior Vaishnava, a disciple must always remain fully dedicated to his own spiritual master, which is Diksha and Siksha Guru, for that is the long-standing Vaishnava tradition. And then he also says in verse number 51, in all situations, the shelter of one's Guru is best and perfect. So you see, you will be now able to understand why there is a need and importance to select someone and treat someone as a guru, because ultimately the shelter of one's own guru is the conclusion. It is the absolute, is the final thing. So even though you may take guidance from senior Vaishnavas or advanced Vaishnavas, but still the shelter of one's own guru. In fact, by the strength and shelter of one's own guru, we can even have a right, we can even have a privilege to disagree with the senior Vaishnavas if they contradict what our guru says. Okay, so I mean, very, very important book. I would recommend to each and every devotee, if they can go through Krishna Varnamrit. He has elaborately explained all these principles. Okay, so now coming back to Srila Prabhupada's statements. Okay, so now there is one particular statement that Prabhupada made. It is given in Siddhanta Prabhu's Prabhupada Memories. So one day Prabhupada asked me, why did I write all these books? I said, so that we can learn this philosophy. We can learn the philosophy. He said, no, these books are to convince you to chant Hare Krishna. If you are convinced, there is no need to read these books. So generally you'll see that many times there are so many statements by Prabhupada where he's encouraging devotees to read books. And we also do that. We want to share with devotees that they should read books. But here is one particular statement that seems to be contrary. Okay, but we'll try to reconcile these things. Okay, it is not contradictory. It is something which is contextual. So this is described by Hansadutta Prabhu. Now, Srila Prabhupada also said that these 4 books are sufficient for all the devotees. If devotees do not have time to read other books, then his 4 books are sufficient. Nectar of Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada also said, in order to understand Krishna consciousness, the philosophy, the truths, the tattva, one must read books by the previous acharyas. Srila Prabhupada instructed in most of his letters to read his books thoroughly, and throughout his books, he has extensively quoted a lot of acharyas, Vaishnava acharyas. So basically, Srila Prabhupada has summarized the essential truths laid down by Lord Chaitanya and Rupa Goswami with the help of all the previous acharyas. Okay, so now, so there are statements where Prabhupada is encouraging to read books to become a jnani in Krishna's service. But at the same time, there are statements where Prabhupada is saying that, okay, like there are other statements where Prabhupada is saying that if someone is not able to hear, someone is not able to read, then just chant Hare Krishna and they will be realized. Okay, so so there are different statements made by Prabhupada in different circumstances. But what we do understand is that yes, knowledge is essential. The more knowledge a devotee has, the more he can represent the conclusions of the Shastra in a proper fashion. Like for example, let's say, if you have just begun your Krishna conscious journey and you start preaching Bhagavad Gita to the newcomers, right? But after maybe let's say 8 or 10 years, you will start preaching Bhagavad Gita to these new devotees in a completely different way. Why? Because you become matured in your own Krishna consciousness, you become realized in your Krishna consciousness, and you emphasize things which are relevant. It's not that you try to show your scholarship to the newcomers, because early, in the initial days, we have a tendency to show off our knowledge, to show off our skills. But later on, we do realize what is most important in order to cultivate new people in Krishna consciousness. So accordingly, we preach to them. And then not just about preaching to new people, but even when it comes to preaching to devotees, knowledge is essential. So you cannot preach to devotees unless you have sufficient knowledge, right? But what we have to understand is that one cannot say that without knowledge one will not be able to chant Hare Krishna, or one will not be able to reach perfection. That is what Prabhupada is actually explaining here when he says that, well, you don't need to read my books because the purpose is to chant Hare Krishna. Well, yeah, but at another place Prabhupada is also writing that if you want to chant Hare Krishna purely, then you must have knowledge. So we have to reconcile these statements. We cannot only emphasize certain statements of Prabhupada and share it with all, we cannot emphasize our own mood to others. Okay, we have to understand from an holistic vision. So the more the knowledge, and Prabhupada also said this in one place. Prabhupada says that the more knowledge a devotee has, the more effectively he is able to preach Krishna consciousness. And then there is also example of boiling the milk, where Prabhupada says that you boil the milk thoroughly. That means, and then there are letters where Prabhupada actually has written to disciples where he says that more important than preaching to new people is preaching to our devotees, to train them. Okay, in that context, Prabhupada says that it is more important to boil the milk rather than to expand the milk by adding water. Okay, but obviously, if you don't have milk at all, you will not even have the opportunity to increase the quality, right? So we recruit new people. At the same time, we also go deep in our own Krishna consciousness. And so sadhana and seva becomes a parallel process. So we have to remember, very perfectly concluded by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says, health, sadhana and seva is the order of importance in our devotee's life. If you don't have good health, then obviously that will affect your sadhana, because we are not nitya siddhas. So there is no question of having a good sadhana without having good health. And so if you don't have a good sadhana, that will affect your service, because you may be able to do service physically, but your mind will be somewhere else. So it's a perfect connection, health, sadhana, seva. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wonderfully summarizes the entire principles of Krishna consciousness. He says it concludes in three things: Nama Ruchi, Vaishnav Seva, and Jeev Daya. So these three processes are interconnected to each other. If you don't chant the holy name, you cannot serve the Vaishnavas effectively. If and if you don't chant the holy name, if you don't serve Vaishnavas, obviously you cannot preach to others because you will not have that strength. But if you chant the holy name, if you serve Vaishnavas, then your chanting and serving Vaishnavas will be effective to get new people, Jeev Daya, and that Jeev Daya will attract the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he will give you the taste for Nama Ruchi and Vaishnava Seva. So it's a linked process, it's a cycle. You cannot disconnect, it's inseparable. So these three things should be the core foundation of our spiritual life. In fact, this is exactly Srila Prabhupada is actually represented in our ISKCON. So you'll see that how one typical example of this is how the preaching in London was successful just by this 6 Grihastha devotees. They were not even sannyasis, and they were very neophyte devotees, maybe in the movement for just 6 months. And they were able to get so many people. They were able to make so many devotees in London, which the Gaudiya Math devotees, and especially the sannyasis who had gone there for 35 years, they were trying. The outcome was that they were only able to make one initiated devotee, one initiated British devotee. So Prabhupada always gives this example, and in this context, Prabhupada says that actually the order of the spiritual master is the most important. If you have implicit faith in the order of the spiritual master, then wonderful, miraculous things will happen. I do remember one time Shyam Sundar Prabhu, and this is also recorded in Siddhanta Prabhu's memories, where Shyam Sundar Prabhu says that when there was no Lakshmi, there was one particular time when we were seeing that Lakshmi was falling from the sky. This is a reality. I mean, he was seeing that the dollar bills, they are just flying from the sky, coming from nowhere. Because Prabhupada actually, he wanted Lakshmi in order to, for some service. He would desperately wanted that. And there were no means of getting Lakshmi from anywhere. And then suddenly, Shyam Sundar Prabhu is seeing that Lakshmi is falling from the sky. This is a reality. I'm not joking about it. It's there in the Siddhanta memories. So you see, and then Shyam Sundar Prabhu says that this miracle happened because we had faith in Prabhupada. We were putting efforts. We had faith in Prabhupada's words, and we were doing it. And that's why we saw these miracles. And it was not, and he also says that it was not unnatural for us to see these miracles because we had that faith in Prabhupada. So this is very important. So basically, so most of the devotees, they are executing bhakti according to the nature and inclination. And one particular story that I do appreciate that Mahatma Prabhu shared, I wanted to reiterate that here. If you remember, he had given an example of Prabhupada disciple. After Prabhupada's disappearance, that disciple started taking Siksha outside ISKCON, right? And then he was asked by ISKCON devotees, by the GVC, to stop that connection, because that time they were thinking that either ISKCON or you are out. Only two choices. So they went to that Prabhupada disciple and they told him that you have to sever your connection with him. And this disciple said that, why should I disconnect? He is the devotee who actually helped me during the difficult period of my life in my Krishna consciousness. So how can I give up my relationship with him? So then the GBC said, okay, then you have to leave ISKCON. And so he left ISKCON. And then later on, then he had disciples. And all these disciples, they were going with him. They were not staying in ISKCON. And so later on, one of the Prabhupada, his godbrother, he started preaching to his disciples that don't go to your guru, stay in ISKCON. Okay, and then he also started criticizing. So then this particular guru came and he got to know that, okay, my godbrother is actually criticizing me and he's actually asking all my disciples to stay back in ISKCON, not to come with me. So then he asked his godbrother that, why are you doing this? And you know what he replied? It's a very important concept. He says that I cultivated these devotees for Srila Prabhupada, not for you. And at that particular moment, he started crying and he said, yeah, you are right. Okay, so now this is very important. Whether it is preaching, whether preaching to newcomers or to devotees, one thing we have to remember, that we have to represent Srila Prabhupada's mood, his desire, the emphasis that Srila Prabhupada actually gave in our ISKCON movement. If we do not do this, now there's a simple question that I would ask all the devotees. If we are not doing this, if any scholarly devotee is not doing this, then why do we consider Srila Prabhupada as the founder Acharya, as the current Acharya of ISKCON? Let's remove whatever teachings Prabhupada gave. Let's emphasize our own mood, our own desires, according to our limited so-called knowledge of Shastras. Let's try to promote that and just sidetrack Srila Prabhupada. Because, so if we are not emphasizing Srila Prabhupada, why are we saying that he's an Acharya for the next 10,000 years? Because Acharya is connected to his teachings. They are inseparable. If you do not emphasize Prabhupada's mood, his desires, then definitely you are sidetracking Srila Prabhupada, you are disconnecting with him gradually. And this is a common phenomenon that we have observed amongst the scholarly devotees in the past also. Now, these scholarly devotees, they have been maintained in ISKCON, they have got knowledge in ISKCON, they have been trained by ISKCON devotees. When they have got knowledge, they have become Sanskrit scholars. They have started writing articles, they have started promoting certain things. Once they become popular, they started promoting their own emphasis on a particular Shastra. In other words, they also start promoting the mood of bhajan more than what Prabhupada actually wanted, the mood of preaching. This is what we constantly observe amongst the scholarly devotees. So basically that's why I'm a bit hesitant and a bit concerned about that, because okay, scholarly devotees, they are doing great services for ISKCON, but when it comes to representing, when it comes to formally and publicly teaching certain things, I think it is very important that they must emphasize Srila Prabhupada's moods. Okay, I mean, we are all individuals, we can present Krishna consciousness in our own ways, but we should make sure that we are not deviating from the desire of Srila Prabhupada. That is very important. If you do that, then we have also seen the result of that. So in the past, there were devotees who tried to read it, and later on, they became critical of Prabhupada translations. And they said that Prabhupada made a mistake. And there are certain errors in Prabhupada's, commentaries. So they started finding fault in Prabhupada's commentaries. So that's why scholarly devotees should represent mood and desire of Srila Prabhupada. They shouldn't make public advanced concepts of bhakti. Okay, now obviously some scholarly devotees, because they have read a lot of Shastra, it's a natural outcome of that you tend to go more into the direction of Raganuga Bhakti or something connected to that. And then you start emphasizing that. You start sharing with them, with all the devotees openly, not even understanding who is at what level, who is got connected recently, who has spent so many years in Krishna, who is an initiated devotee. You are not seeing all these things. Then obviously that is not the right way, because Prabhupada never spoke about all these things. And you can clearly sense it in their writings, because this is something that Prabhupada did not emphasize so much. Now, I have spoken to some Prabhupada disciples. I asked him this question, that if Prabhupada would have been present now, would Prabhupada emphasize on these things? And they all said that actually Prabhupada would have preached Krishna consciousness, because it's just, maybe how much percentage of the world is Krishna conscious? I mean, not even 1%, probably. So Prabhupada would take every opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness. And obviously Prabhupada said that, I would have translated many other books also. But, although Prabhupada has given all the essential truths of the acharyas, the tattvas of Krishna Lila, and that's why there is nothing that needs to be hidden. Okay, I mean, everything is given by Prabhupada. In fact, there is one particular Siddhanta Prabhu memories. Riftinandan Prabhu shares his experience that one time Prabhupada told him, he asked him about, whether we need to go outside ISKCON. And then Prabhupada said that you don't have to go anywhere else. Everything will be revealed to you. You just have to follow the process. 1 second. Yeah. So let me read this. So Riftinandan, in the mid-70s, Nitai Das, a devotee Sanskrit scholar, started hearing from a Brajvasi Goswami and left ISKCON as a result. Nitai claimed that Prabhupada had not given us all the information that we needed. He criticized Prabhupada for not telling his disciples about their eternal ras with Krishna. So in Buckley, 1976, I asked Prabhupada, are there any matters concerning the nature of our devotional service and our relationship with Krishna that you have not explained to us? In the future, will it be necessary for us to find someone else for more instructions? Or if we follow your prescription for sadhana, sankirtan, preaching and chanting, will our hearts be purified so that Krishna will reveal subsequent things to us from within? When I said the later part, Prabhupada smiled and said, yes, this is the way. You will not have to go anywhere else. If you simply follow my instructions, everything will be revealed to you from within. He had a pleased look. It was clear to me that there was no need for information about our ras, because everything is revealed to a pure-hearted devotee. This is also very consistently emphasized by Srila Prabhupada in most of the letters to his disciples, that everything is going to be revealed to us from within. So just by following Srila Prabhupada, just by serving Prabhupada, pleasing him, the super soul is going to reveal to us all these things. You will have a natural inclination. You will know your ras. You will connect with the Lord in that way, and you will know everything. So there is no question of going outside. So basically, yeah. So okay. So now let me conclude. Let me conclude by sharing something extraordinary. I think you love this. I don't know if you know this, but this is the crux of the discussion. Okay. So this is something connected to book distribution also. So this is a manuscript which was discovered at Radha Damodar temple. researchers at the Radharani Manuscript Library announced a new discovery. Vrindavan, September 12, 2004. A new document has been discovered in the Radharani Manuscript Library, announced library curator R.D. Gupta on Thursday. Written on palm leaves, it contains a letter from Narottam Das Thakur to Srila Jeev Goswami containing the annual book distribution totals for the year ending with Gaur Purnima of Shaka 1501, which is AD 1579. So basically, this is a book distribution score which Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamanand Prabhu and Srinivas Acharya had scored. Okay, so Srinivas Acharya, like, there are multiple scriptures mentioned. Bhagavatams with Vaishnav Toshni, the score is 6. 6 were distributed. Then Gyandas songs 23, Govindas songs 19, Narottam Das Thakur's Pratna 11, Bhakti-Rasamrit Sindhu 1. So like that for Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Prabhu and Srinivas Acharya. And it is noted that these are the total scores for the entire Sripat, not just the individuals named. Narottam Das concludes with his letter with the following comment. And I will not read the Bengali, I will just go through the English. Narottam laments the poor scores and said that until someone comes along and invents the printing press, it looks like it will be impossible to develop prema. He prays to take birth in that distant future so that he too can distribute books in the streets and marketplaces and get Mahaprabhu's mercy. For what use is chanting or worshipping or discussing Harikatha when the book distribution scores are so low? Extraordinary. You can see, how the Acharyas, they have done everything. They were not just scholarly devotees, but they were menial servants, they were book distributors. Narottam Das Thakur was cleaning the stool and urine of Loknath Goswami. Jeev Goswami was also cleaning. Shyamanand Prabhu was a cleaner, the streets of Nidhivan Seva Kunj. You see how all these Acharyas, they have taken a humble role, position, menially serve. And you will also see this consistently amongst our exalted Vaishnavas like Jayapataka Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, Janivas Prabhu, what not they have done for Srila Prabhupada. They have painted temple halls, they have fixed temple structures, they have washed toilets, they have washed utensils, they have distributed books, they have given class, what not they have done for Srila Prabhupada. Whenever they are given some opportunity to serve, they will take it. They will not have priority. That no, I would like to do only this service. This is my most favorite limb of bhakti. So let me focus on that. It is mentioned in the Shastra that only one limb of bhakti is sufficient to take us back to Godhead. So why I need to do other limbs of bhakti? No. So these things are important to train us. Obviously, we have our prominent limbs of bhakti as our favorite limbs, but other limbs of bhakti are also helpful. They are training us to become humble, to stay grounded, right? And so these are the finer aspects of Krishna consciousness, and for a devotee to decide and judge which speaker they should hear from. So with this, we conclude our session, and if there are any questions or comments, then
Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. I really loved the last scores study. I never heard this, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kishori Priya Mataji, I think you raised your hand. Unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I had a question about something that you mentioned in both the sections, actually. That's about the realizations, right? So how, to me, to understand whether a devotee is realized or not is kind of difficult. I mean, the more obvious things are, is he speaking from Shastra? Is he following the predecessor acharyas? So that's more obvious, right?
Yeah.
But how do we know? I mean, he can say he is realized, or he can tell his realizations, but it seems more internal.
Yeah.
And very
So
hard.
it's that was a question which was expected, and it's a good question, Mataji. In fact, this same question was asked to Radhanath Maharaj when he was giving a class about the purity of speakers. There was one class where Maharaj is actually explaining about the importance of hearing from devotees. And so this question was asked to him, and Maharaj said that obviously it's between Guru and Krishna. We cannot judge someone, we cannot know that. But from an external point of view, we can understand certain things, like, for example, their dedication, their humility, their surrender to the Guru. So if these things are clear, then we may understand that, okay, to some degree, the devotees actually, I mean, this is something which I personally prefer. So what I basically mean to say is that let's not assume the speaker is very advanced. This is my point, the entire theme of the class. And then let's not sidetrack all these other devotees who are truly advanced, but they are in the background. So let's realize that. Let's identify that also. It's not wrong to be popular. In fact, it is also possible that Krishna empowers a devotee and he becomes popular with time. So for a specific mission, he can be empowered also. But the most important question is that, do you know the devotee personally? And the second question is, what is your connection with that devotee? Well, okay, you are hearing from a popular speaker, you are hearing from an advanced Mahabhagavat. How is that going to change your Krishna consciousness? How is that going to affect your Krishna consciousness? That is the most important question. So it all depends on your connection with that devotee also. Because we don't want to just keep on hearing. It's not like a marketplace, it's not a shopping place where we go and we say that, okay, ye pasand nahi aaya to next, ye nahi aaya to wo. Like keep jumping from one thing to another thing. It's not like that. We want to make sure that wherever we are investing our faith, we know it is actually in the right direction. And what are the characteristics of where we can invest the faith? So these are the, and that's why you see Prabhupada said that we are concerned with the current status of a devotee. So we are not even saying that someone has to be at the platform of bhav. Now let's talk about advanced Mahabhagavats or Vaishnavas. So we don't say that you have to realize from a bhav bhakta or you have to hear from prem bhakta. If you say that, then maybe that's only one devotee who is fitting that qualification, and then you have isolated all the others. So we are not doing that here, and we are not judging anyone's advancement here. But I think it is important to also know the devotee. What is their cooperation with the temple authorities, cooperative spirit? Were they connected to some temple? Are they, were they serving in some temple? I think for me that all these things are very important. These, the background, because one can speak, one can, even the Mayavadis can speak. What to speak of the devotees? Mayavadis, what do the Mayavadis do? They only share knowledge. that is the only goal. They don't have any other goal. They don't want to serve. So, and there is an example of a Mayavadi in Chaitanya Charitamrita where a Mayavadi is chanting the holy name 24 hours a day. He's chanting Lord Ram's name 24 hours a day. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not even impressed with that, because he understood the desire of that devotee or so-called devotee is actually to merge and become one with Ram. He's a Mayavadi. So Mahaprabhu neglected him. So basically, see, now externally it may seem that someone is speaking for so long, or someone is chanting 64 rounds a day, or 128 rounds. But is Krishna present in that holy name? Why are we concluding that someone, yeah, I know it is definitely not so easy to chant 64 rounds every day, but it is possible. I don't think it is impossible I would say that, yeah, maybe by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, I can chant the holy name 64 rounds every day. Okay. But would I say that Krishna will personally appear to me just because I'm chanting 64? No. I mean, you can attain the Lord just by chanting a syllable of the holy name purely. It's given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu says, and you chant millions of names of the Lord, and you can't even attain the Lord because you commit offenses to the holy name. So now, ultimately, it's all about purity. So pure chanting means you have to have a spirit of surrender also. You cannot isolate, you cannot separate surrender. So like, I know many devotees, and I have interacted with devotees when I give classes. I ask them, what is more difficult? is chanting more rounds difficult or is surrender more difficult? And they all of them agree that surrender is very difficult. Because chanting more rounds, it becomes a mechanical practice. It seems good, it feels good. Okay, I'm connected with the holy name, it is good. But it's not necessary that the Lord is present in the holy name. So the idea is that we categorize advanced or we term advanced devotees as someone who is very sincere, and that sincerity depends on the mood of surrender, humility, and service. These are the external factors how we can actually understand. Otherwise, internally we don't know. We can never judge that. But we can also, if we don't know a devotee, we can also take reference. We can also ask a senior Vaishnava who knows that devotee very properly, who has seen that devotee. I mean, see, if you ask me, from whom will you hear? If you give me an option, from a popular devotee or from Janivas Prabhu, obviously I will hear from Janivas Prabhu, because everyone knows in ISKCON what he has done for Prabhupada, what he is doing for Prabhupada, and what level of humility he has. It's obvious. So I hope it makes sense, Bhavani. Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Aritra, I think he had a question. I think I saw he had raised his hand.
No, I did not actually.
Okay.
Okay. So Prabhu, again, thank you so much. Probably it's what 10:30, 11 o'clock, very late in the night on a Sunday. So thank you so much for taking your time, and I'm sure you'll have another busy day tomorrow.
Actually, Prabhu, I will be very honest. If it was not service, I would have been doing something material. So, so it's an honor and privilege to serve devotees and to share knowledge with all of you. And I hope that it will have some kind of benefit also. And kindly forgive me for sharing or saying something which is which will probably be offensive to someone, or so I seek forgiveness from devotees. At the same time, thank you so much for giving me opportunity to speak. Thank you, Aritra. Thank you, Dvaipayana Prabhu also. Thank you all the devotees of ISKCON Orlando. Hare Krishna, Donatram, to each and every devotee.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Yeah.
And Tuesday, we do have a wonderful festival of Lord Narasimha Appearance Day. So we invite every one of you to join us, and wherever you are in that place, celebrate and have a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
Always to Rasvigra Prabhu and Aritra Prabhu. Wonderful service. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hari Bol.